Greetings, I'm Solidus-Skully, and welcome back to the Resident Evil commentary where we enter the guardhouse. Although it's not really a guardhouse, in fact, I think it may be a front for some evil scientific shenanigans. Yes, I wonder what experiments the Umbrella Corporation was doing here. Probably stuff involving bugs, or maybe a bit of plant life. It's nearby the garden. There's a lot of water, and a few plants. And speaking of which, that's part of why we're moving around this little statue thing of the gargoyle. No, Goliath isn't going to help us out this time, but instead, yeah, if you go near that little hole in the floor, then a plant will come up and bite you, or just do a bit of damage to you. So either way, it's in your vested interest to basically just keep them covered. So, yeah, the guardhouse is pretty much the second area of the game. Pretty decent area, although much shorter than the mansion segment. It's only really for one thing, so again, you don't have to make a return trip or anything, unless there's supplies that you desperately need, but if you've been playing your cards right, then you shouldn't have to worry too much. But there is going to be a fair bit to do, so we'll be pretty much doing the mansion segment... The mansion? Excuse me, we'll pretty much be doing the guardhouse segment in two parts, so... yeah. You're gonna be getting your money's worth. I have no idea why I'm doing that voice, it's just, addictive. But there is a fair bit to explore. Not only do you get a little bit more informational content in terms of what Umbrella was doing around here, but in turn, you get a few unique set pieces, some pretty creepy ambience, and a few new enemies that are gonna show up. Nothing that's gonna tip the balance of power, mind you, but enough that it'll make you go, Jesus Christ, what the hell is that thing, how do I kill it? And, I'm scared, boo-hoo, a-boo-hoo-hoo, a-boo-hoo-hoo. Particularly if you have arachnophobia. Like the 1990 movie. I forgot what year it came out specifically, but it was the one with Dr. Death in it. And if you're wondering why I'm panning out for time, it's because we have more item management. The game. And yeah, you kind of do need to clear out a lot of space in your inventory for this part, because there is a fair bit to collect. I mean, if you're confident enough with the game, you can pretty much do it without healing items, just... whatever. The point is, just be prepared as you like, but yeah, don't be afraid. By the way, if I can make another comparison to the remake, I found this area to be a little bit more hard to navigate. I don't know if that was because of the added rooms, particularly with this room right here. Like, they added more to the little rec room area, and I don't know, it just seemed to be a bit more of a pain in the ass. And yes, indeed, our next enemy, spiders! Oh no! If only they were made of lava, then we could have had a phantom boss fight. Although, kind of speaking of comparisons to Devil May Cry, if you shoot... I don't know what triggers this, but I think if you just kill a spider with regular bullets or ammunition outside of what you have with your grenade launcher, then yeah, the spiders will basically, as a last-ditch effort attack, launch out little babies that you can run around and squash. I mean, you don't get anything for it, and if you let them attack you, it's pretty much... I believe, I don't think the little ones inflict the poison status, but I think the big ones do, so, yeah, be on your guard. Part of the reason why you want to keep your stock of blue herbs up, because otherwise you are going to be royally fudged. Yes, indeed, I am censoring myself. For the game on the PlayStation that I think was what kickstarted some of the more mature elements. Whatever. I mean, it was pretty much one of the defining games of the console, mind you, and I guess part of the reason why it was primarily considered, you know, the big boys video game console, you know, in a way that Sega kind of, sort of had before them. Yeah, whatever, the point is that it was basically the end result of games like Resident Evil, Tomb Raider and all that. That's only really led to Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon being stuff for the kiddies to play. Bit of a goofy thing going on right now, actually. Not really too sure what I think about it, but there is a rather creepy one that does actually play when you get to the basement of the guardhouse, which is actually one of my favorites and reminds me of, well, it kind of feels like something that should have been played like in a different sort of game. I'll talk about it when we get to it, but stay tuned. But either way, like, much like the previous mansion in question again, you still have puzzles to solve, you still have mysterious items that you don't know what they do, but you'll find them. And when you do, you'll have to unplug the mucky bathwater. And no, unlike the remake, there isn't a zombie that's gonna pop out of the bathtub and go blurg and then Jill throws up or whatever. You know, kinda weird actually. I mean, I seem to remember a lot of people complaining about Resident Evil 3 remake for ruining, well, quote-unquote ruining Jill's character, but apparently Jill being weaker and throwing up in the first remake isn't. I don't know what's going on. Could be people misreading the signals, or the characters, or complaining about stuff that's not very important. What am I rambling about? I have no idea. In terms of an area to explore, it's obviously much smaller than the mansion, but yeah, I think visually, like, there's a bit less on display. I mean, it's basically just an old rickety wooden house with a few additional pips and areas here too, like the rec room or a few smaller laboratories here and there. So again, what it lacks in visual spice, it's, well, just got additional context here and there. And I suppose does kind of go off to show the full scope of what Umbrella was experimenting with in terms of their virus culture. Because, I mean, we've obviously seen the T-Virus working its magic on organic life forms like humans and airate dogs and spiders. But what about the plants? Yes, the plants that brave their hidden roots so that they can give us life. In hindsight, I probably should have cut down on a lot of this item management, because really, it's just making sure that you got enough stuff to last. That would require re-recording the video, and I'm too lazy. Except I'm not too lazy, but I'm already doing the recording now, so fuck it. Yes, so I need some more Resident Evil tangents, but luckily, this is where the tangents come in. So I suppose on completely unrelated notes, until we get to something slightly more interesting, there was actually a near-complete Game Boy port of Resident Evil that, in kind of like a Star Fox 2 kind of way, was like close enough to completion, but then got scrapped at the last minute. Not sure what the official reasoning was, but I mean, apparently I think there is a way to play it. I think somebody might have like dumped the ROM onto the internet and you can mostly play it, I think? Although, from what I remember reading about that, I thought there was like only a certain point you could get in the Game Boy version before it like stopped you from completely progressing, so yeah, I'm not really too sure how that handles. Although, I mean, speaking of Resident Evil ports and alternate versions, I did actually hear about a Resident Evil demake fan project that was on the Mega Drive, kind of done in a similar way that I was actually suggesting way back in the Sonic 3D Blast commentary, where it was done kind of like in an isometric perspective, and you would have had the characters, like, you know, run down hallways, shoot enemies, and all that kind of stuff, so, yeah, if I can track that down, I might be interested in playing it. Well, maybe just for my own purposes, not for the sake of a commentary or anything. Well, unless I find enough to talk about, in which case, I might do that, but it's neither here nor there in this case. Bees. My god. The remake also adds like a little hole that you can look into to, I guess, see the key that you need to get, and then the bees come out of that, and yeah, it's just not really all that fun. I mean, the remake does actually add like a slight puzzle where, oh no, you can't get the key because of the bees, so you get some pesticide and spray it. Which, I mean, I suppose if I could say anything, is pretty much a prime example of what the remake does. It's pretty much the original game, but with a few extra steps to do things that you otherwise could have bristly gotten in the original. Not necessarily bad, but it's I mean, you could live without it, but I mean, it's added content for your game, and, you know, if you have more game in your game, then it's game. Even if that game isn't substantial, like the Clock Tower segment of Resident Evil 3. Oh, yes, I went there. Wham, hot take and shutting down all the complaints about the 3 remake. Boom, black people shouting and doing the thing, like, with the awe and the whatever. I don't know meme culture anymore. Anyway, this is Plant 42, our primary enemy of this segment. Much like the yawn is to the mansion, Plant 42 pretty much spread its roots quite literally all throughout this little guardhouse and seems to be, taking the rent. I mean, any guards that might have been here are now thoroughly whipped, and, well, yeah, Plant 42 is pretty much having the run of the house at the moment. There, of course, since it is located right next to the little pool and waterfall, yeah, it's got plenty of water. I'm sure all the corpses will make for great fertilizer, so, yeah, Plant 42 is sound as a pound right now, with its T-virus-juiced steroids. But maybe some ammunition will turn the tide of battle. Although, really, it's kind of just more of a suggestion of what do you do to take out plants? Use some fire. So, yeah, highly recommend you use the flame rounds for your bazooka/G launcher. And now we get down to, what is one of my preferred areas of the game, but also one with a really creepy theme. Yes, this is the basement, my dear. I don't know, like, I mean, this area kind of makes me, well, at least the soundtrack makes me think of two specific things. The first of which was Genma Onimusha with, like that creepy puppet doll enemy, and the second of which is, like, I don't know, I mean, I kind of mentioned, the Resident Evil-inspired fan project Elisa in the previous part, but, yeah, the one thing that it does actually make me think of is, like, a Resident Evil game, like, set in a, like, I guess maybe not specifically a Resident Evil game, but something like, I don't know, if they're exploring a puppet dollhouse. I guess maybe something kind of similar to the Ashford Family Mansion. Like, I don't know, like, you could just, I just kind of see, like, this fixed camera tank control survival horror game, you know, with, like, lots of dolls and puppet eyes just staring at the main character creepily as they tread through a hallway. I don't know, it just, I don't know why it brings that specifically to mind, but it just makes for a very surreal set piece, and the music just, mwah, perfectly balances that. Yes, the Saturn version and its clear-cut water effects. Beautiful, bellissimo, whereas in the original it just looked like there was a hole in the floor and the boxes were floating inexplicably. Sploosh. By the way, the remake also added a bit of a pain-in-the-ass puzzle aspect to this thing as well, where basically what happened was, well, yeah, after a certain time the boxes would sink, because I guess they weren't very buoyant, and then you have to find another way out. Actually, in terms of changes, like, I mean, besides having a more stingy way to get back, there is actually a cool puzzle that the remake did add that I am all in favor for. I don't know, had like a little under pressure scenario. What that is, we will talk about later, when we get to the remake. But in the original, it's pretty much just a tacit go into room to do thing, then get some stuff, and then do another thing a bit later on, and that's about all she wrote. Nothing too bad, but a bit more straightforward. But it is also here where you have to watch out, because, there's something lurking in these waters, and we're gonna need a bigger boat. But I'm in the mood for fish and chips. So, anybody seen Deep Blue Sea? Yes indeed, there be sharks in this water. And, well, I mean, I've never specifically seen what happens if you lose, because I'm usually pretty quick with my feet, and yeah. I mean, generally, if you know where to go, then you should be pretty safe in getting away from the shark before it takes a bite out of you, but I don't know if it's like a one-hit kill kind of thing, or if, well, you know, the sharks are pretty much just like, you know, does gradual damage, and if you're too, slow in the water, then you get eaten? I don't know, but either way, I've never died to the sharks. Might be worth showing off. I think you... No, actually, no, I'm not too sure. I was trying to think about maybe something I saw in the Chris's scenario, where, Chris's scenario where, you know, you could have seen Rebecca get eaten by one of them, but I'm not too sure about that. Yeah, but I mean, either way, that clears out some plot progression, and, thus we shall be saved from the evil of the sharks. Because without water, they are useless. Actually, thinking back about that, well, actually, well, I should probably talk about the reason why the place was flooded to begin with. Yeah, the Neptunes, as the sharks are actually called by their in-game name, yeah, they pretty much broke through the wall. I guess maybe the T-virus leaked into them as well. I mean, they didn't seem to mutate as much, or at least, not on the PS1. Actually, no, I couldn't even tell on the remake either, so I think they were just regular sharks that kind of got, like, super juiced. Whatever. I guess maybe their growth rate might have accelerated, but I'm not too sure. But basically, the sharks broke out, cracked the hole in the tank, and, yeah, we had to drain the water. Because again, it was because of the Neptunes cracking the tank that water flooded the place, and the Plant 42 started to grow exponentially, so it was basically a domino effect of, well, Umbrella Corporation being very careless with their security measures. Although, kind of thinking about that though, to be honest, that does kind of make the remakes version a little bit more suspect, because again, I had this entire segment where Jill pretty much had to, well, secure the whole of her control facility, which, I mean, if Umbrella had that technology in the remake, then, well, how did anything go bad? Or whether employees just that incompetent. I can't remember if there was a memo that kind of explained it, but whatever. Yes, flop like a fish? Indeed, my hat is like a shark's fin. Yes, indeed, my hat is like a shark's fin. Assuming that was the same rap song from, fuck it, Deep Blue Sea, I think, or whatever it was called. Whatevers! Really fucking creepy theme, though. The remake actually made it a bit more melancholic, but the original version in Resident Evil 1, as you're hearing here... I mean, it's kind of, like, discordant, but at the same time, like, I mean, when it gets to its, little ambient synth piece, it's... God, it's fucking chilling, man. And I mean, that's part of the beauty of Resident Evil 1's soundtrack with the original game. Like, I mean, there are moments where it feels like, you know, mid-90s B-movie kind of stuff, but at the same time, though, it does have that occasional moment where it is incredibly chilling, so... Yeah, the original game soundtrack gets a plus from me. Unless it's the DualShock Edition soundtrack, which sucks, and, yes, the deaf composer should be ashamed of himself, even if he's only partially deaf. This theme, however, kinda sucks. It ain't too good. But anyway, now we've got more to explore, and, yeah. I mean, I suppose I'm not really finding myself with much to say about this guardhouse, to be honest, but really, it's kind of straightforward as an area. Like, I mean, a lot of its puzzles are just... use item to do thing here, which again is something you could probably use to describe most of the game up to this point, but... I don't know, there just isn't really a lot of stimulus besides basic interactions, so... If you're finding my commentary a little bit rambly, I do apologize, but... Yeah, it's basically just all the guardhouse is. I suppose it is sort of a midway point where a lot of people would find themselves stopping, or if not that, then maybe the section after it, because of, yeah, after the guardhouse, the game does kind of spike in difficulty, reasonably so since you're about halfway through at this point, but, yeah, enemies be getting tougher, and, well, the next ones they introduce are dangerous. Oh yeah, and that would be the place in the remake where, well, they have the bees come after you. Which is, I think, part of the reason why I think in the original they used that to block the entryway, whereas in the remake you need to use some bug spray to work with the exterminators. Yeah, to bet out for some more time, let's have some more trivia. And another bit of interesting thing, you remember earlier on how in Resident Evil 1 it was gonna have a first-person mode? Oh my god, that means that Resident Evil 7 was like the original Resident Evil. Oh my god, TV, internet, web, fandom trope, whatever shit. But yeah, would you believe that an earlier build of Resident Evil, I believe, you know, by the time they actually had, you know, the fixed camera tank controls thing set up, yeah, it was initially going to start Chris as the main character with Jill as a support partner, and she would have been controlled by an AI. So yeah, we would have had Resident Evil 5 several years beforehand, but the reason it was scrapped was in a similar reason to why people hate Resident Evil 5. That is to say that the AI wasn't quite up to par, and while there is a bit of that in Resident Evil 1 towards the end of the game, depending on what you do, yeah, we could have had an AI partner with us the whole game. I guess this was back in the day when Jill was meant to be like the cutesy anime sidekick, and Chris was, you know, just there to be the playable character, but I don't know, it is quite interesting. I mean, I suppose that might be part of the reason why we're not seeing Chris right now, but, yeah. If the two of them were meant to be together, I suppose that probably would have had a more... Well, I wouldn't say a more cohesive story, but it does make me wonder whether or not it kind of explains the reason why you don't see one character or the other in a different scenario. You know, you don't see Barry and Chris, or you don't see a Rebecca and Jill scenario. Like, it might be a remnant of that sort of design, but... Yeah, I mean, it's, quite curious. I mean, I never really considered maybe that might have been the reason, but, either way, that's something that they should have fixed, but, bizarrely enough, it's something that the Resident Evil remakes don't really seem to be that focused on. Like, I mean, Resident Evil 2 remake didn't really bother with the zapping mechanic thing from the original. And I mean, while I'm a fan of the clock tower being cut out of Resident Evil 3 Remake, you know, some of the Nemesis decisions that you could make, I think could have easily translated into that for instant replay value, just add water, and especially for Resident Evil 1 Remake. Like, I mean, they were so focused on adding so many additional features that, I don't know, they could have gone out of their way to kind of explain why Rebecca wasn't in Jill's scenario and why Barry wasn't there at Chris's. Like, I mean, a lot of this could have been easily remedied as, you know, maybe putting, I don't know, Rebecca in a holding cell and, you know, freeing her at the end of the game. I mean, Jill wouldn't have known who she was, really, but, you know, still could have had them. Well, hindsight is 20/20, and looking back, it's still a bit fuzzy. Da-da-dun! But in any case, I think we've got pretty much all that we need, so, next time, well, actually we've got a fair bit to go before I start doing the whole next time thing, but yeah, once we make a bit of commute down here, we'll pretty much be learning how to put a stop to Plant 42, because, well, as anybody would tell you, if you happen to tend to a garden, or let your lawn grow too long, your neighbours are going to be pissed, so, unfortunately we don't have a giant weed whacker or lawnmower to take care of business here. So, let's figure out the code to the lab. Figure out, how to mix some chemicals, because on top of apparently being this master thief, apparently Jill grew up reading the Thievius Raccoonus. Yes indeed, she also knows chemistry. Which, I mean, really makes me wonder what the fuck Chris... Well, I mean, Chris, in terms of backstory, was meant to be in the Air Force before he joined S.T.A.R.S. I think it was under recommendation of Barry Burton, who I think he met in the Air Force. Actually, yeah, that's something I could probably do to pad out the time next time, just talk about character backstories. But, yeah, either way, yeah, Jill knows chemistry. 'Cause she's a smart lady. And, yeah, pay attention in science, kids. It'll save your life against zombies and, plants. But anyway, that'll about do it, so I'm Solidus-Skully, keep it new metal, and next time on the Resident Evil commentary, we finish up the guardhouse. Catch you dudes and dudettes next time, and I'll see you later.